Randy Allen has made a big difference in many kids' lives. And being a Christian himself, we think that he represents what we are all about. It's not only about the game. It's about building character. It's about building meaningful lives. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Lewis.
All right. So, Coach, what makes you wake up every morning and go back to the field?
I get excited when I think about seeing our players at 2:35 in the afternoon. We have about 250 players in athletics, and they get there at 2:35. I usually meet them at the door as they come out of their classrooms, and I want them to know that I'm excited to see them and that there's something great going to happen that day. And the reason I got into coaching, because I was impacted by a coach. I like to use a quote by Pat Dye, who was a former head coach at Auburn. He said, "A coach is called a coach like a preacher is called to preach." And a coach will impact more people in one day than some people will impact in a lifetime.
Absolutely.
In a normal coach's career, he will impact over 20,000 young people. And so when I wake up, I'm excited about how God can use me in the lives of these young men. And I've got many stories of former players whose lives have been changed because of a coach getting involved in their life and being a male authority role model for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the whole thing is not about winning the game, but about winning the real game, which is life, right?
That is correct. But I want to say this, that winning, our objective is to win, and we really create a competitive atmosphere for our players. And one of the ways that I get credibility with our players is that I have to be at the top of my game as a coach. I have to study. Absolutely. They have to believe that I'm going to spring trainings and I'm learning the latest formations, the latest offense, the latest defense. And over 17 years here at Highland Park, I built up a trust because of success. So they listen to what I say and they believe what I say because I've been consistent. We've been successful, and so they believe me. So I think as a coach, we all want to win, and obviously, when two teams meet, only one team can win. But the important thing is that you do everything you can to develop yourself professionally so that you give your players the best chance to be successful. And we like to think about, putting our players in the best positions on the field where they can be successful.
Wonderful, Coach. What would your keys or secrets to be a coach, to go and coach your team for 300 plus wins?
Well, you never start out to be the fourth winningest coach in the history of Texas high school football, but as my career has progressed, God has led me to different high schools to where we had good athletes. I started my career at Bryan High School as an assistant coach and head baseball coach. And then my first head coaching job was in Ballinger. I moved from Ballinger to Brownwood, from Brownwood to Abilene Cooper, and from Abilene Cooper to Highland Park. Mm-hmm. And I had no goal to be at Highland Park more than 3 or 4 years, but this is 17 years, and
wow.
I still enjoy coaching, and I've won the majority of the 347 games here at Highland Park with this football team. This football program is the winningest program in the history of Texas high school football. We have won over 787 games since the beginning of Highland Park High School. And Highland Park High School has a tremendous tradition. One of the theme that you see as you walk in the building is enter to learn, go forth to serve.
Wow. And
inside the school building are all the men who graduated from Highland Park High School, who have served in the military, World War II and Vietnam and all of that, which is kind of unique that a high school would have that kind of information. But it's 300 wins is a byproduct of going to work every day with the idea that I love these kids. I'm in it because God called me to be a coach. And what can I do today to make their lives better?
Wow. It's very meaningful to see all that history not only of wins, but also those kids have made history themselves.
Yes.
All right. Coach, what are your goals and core values as a human being?
I'm going to tell you what our goals are at Highland Park. Our goals are commitment, and what we tell our players: if you give someone your word, you keep your word. You know, your word is your bond. The second thing we talk to them about is enthusiasm. Do things with 100% effort and do things exactly right. The third thing we talk to them about is mental and physical toughness. When the going gets tough, you get going. Adversity is just an opportunity for you to excel. We talk to them about integrity. Do the right thing, whether you're in front of the coach or whether you're away from the coach. Teamwork. Put the team first, and together everyone accomplishes more. The last thing is tradition. Leave it better than you found it. Leave your mark here at Highland Park High School, and be the kind of man that the program's better because you played football here.
Wow, very powerful. Coach, I was wondering last night, beyond the defense game, the offense game, and the kicking game, what is the real game in football for you?
Well, we've hit on a lot of things that the real game of football. The real game of football is how do you motivate your players to be the best they can be. And some of it comes from identifying those players and what position they play best. But so much of it is getting on the inside of your players. And I like to give our players ownership of the team. I like to have elected leadership. And I like those elected leaders to give me feedback so that the decisions that are made are a result of their input. We elect 12 player committee members from our team. And they go through a tough off-season program of conditioning, and their teammates watch them perform in real adverse situations when they're in the mat room or whether they're running sprints or whether they're in the weight room. Those 12 guys meet with me once every Tuesday, and we study a book on leadership. And then they give me feedback on things that they want for the team. They come up with a theme. Our theme this year is respect all, fear none. That's our theme. So we'll have a bumper sticker made with that theme. We'll have a rubber wristband that we'll put on our wrist with that theme. And those guys are the leadership. And my thought is, if they remain loyal to me, I won't lose the football team. And from those 12 player committee members, we elect 4 captains. And then those 4 captains also meet with me, and we study leadership just like I do with the player committee. And their mothers and fathers play a pretty important role on our football team because they're responsible for raising money and ordering T-shirts and hats, and they do a fundraiser called the Caniac Supper at the high school as their big fundraiser. And they do things that make football special for our players. We'll have a meeting in May in which all of our mothers, our parents are invited, and they will sign up for different activities. One of those activities is a prayer group. The morning of a game after the pep rally, some of the moms will go to a prayer meeting near the school. And then before the game, the dads and the dads will go and they'll pray together. They'll get off by the side outside the stadium and they'll pray for the game, for the team. And so that's a real special thing. We have one mother in charge of getting prayer requests, and she'll email me and she'll ask me, is there anything that you need prayer for, anything that the team needs prayer for? And one of the things I've done in the past is I do a prayer journal. I cut out of our football program a picture of every player, and I put it in a prayer journal. And then I write down the prayer request for that player, and then I'll write down when God answers that prayer. And one of the players that I'm going to talk to you about is named Dominique Rhodes. Dominique Rhodes was an 8th grader at Lincoln Middle School in Abilene, Texas, when I was the coach in Abilene. And Dominique was such a discipline problem that they wouldn't let him play football. The principal said that he made too many mistakes and he was not making good grades, and so they wouldn't let him play athletics. And so I invited him to a football camp at our high school. And at first I didn't like him because as the players would gather around and listen to me talk, he would be in the back talking to somebody else and being a distraction. But as I got to know Dominique, what I found out is his daddy was in prison, so he had never known his dad. Wow. His mother was in and out of jail with drugs, and some days he'd go home and he would be the oldest sibling of 3 siblings. He had a younger brother and a younger sister. We had a running back coach named Ralph Fleming, and he was an ordained Baptist preacher on the side. And he started working on Dominique, working on his faith life, working on his grades, working on his attitude. And I was at church the night that Coach Fleming baptized Dominique Rhodes. Wow. And so Dominique made grades. He made good enough grades to be eligible and led us to the 1996 state championship game. And I didn't do a very good job of coaching that game. We played Austin Westlake, and their quarterback was Drew Brees, who now plays for the New Orleans Saints. And he was a great player. But Dominique led us to the state finals. And then his grades were so poor that he couldn't get into Texas Tech, mm-hmm. where he signed a scholarship. So he had to go to Tyler Junior College. And then he went to Midwestern. He was an undrafted free agent rookie for the Indianapolis Colts, and he was the first undrafted free agent rookie to rush for 1,000 yards for the Indianapolis Colts. He played in the Super Bowl that Indianapolis won. He was right next to Peyton Manning. He almost was the most valuable player. But now, 10 or 15 years from being a pro player, he now has camps where he talks to young people. And he texted me the other day and he said, "Coach, I'm telling those young people the same thing you used to tell me, and that is that you can be great on a football field, but unless you make your grades, it's not going to work." And so he's now doing the things that we hoped that he would do when he was a senior in high school. He's a man of faith. He's a man that's trying to mentor young people to make good grades and be good men.
That is very meaningful, Coach. Coach, if you were to start all over, what would you do better this time?
Louis, I hope that I've done it right.
Of course.
I like to mentor young coaches, and what I talk to them about is, getting with a Christian coach when you first get into the profession. My first coaching job was given to me by Merrill Green, and Merrill Green was my high school coach, and he was the role model for me. He was a guy that I didn't want to disappoint. He was a guy that I did everything he told me to do. His dad was a preacher. He was strong in his church. He was a deacon in his church. I never heard him cuss us at practice. He got onto us and he'd get mad, and he was a big motivator, but he never hurt us with his words. He never belittled us. And Coach Green hired me out of college. I had no experience, but he believed enough in me to give me a job at Bryan High School as a teacher and a coach. And so I wouldn't do anything over because I've tried to do what God wanted me to do at any particular big decision. And I don't have time to go into everything, but God has just put me in the right place at the right time. And I think because I became a believer at age 12, I walked the aisle at Belmont Baptist Church in Abilene, Texas, and received Christ as my personal Savior, asked God to forgive me of my sins, and I was baptized there in that small Baptist church in Abilene, Texas. And I realized watching Tom Landry, who people may not even remember his name now, but he was the great coach for the Dallas Cowboys. Roger Staubach was the great quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and those guys were my role models. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to have the same impact that they had in life. And that's, I just hope that I've made the right decisions, and that I hope that I can say at the end of my life I wouldn't do it any differently. I'd do the same things that I've done. And anyway, that's my answer.
That is very meaningful. What would you recognize, Coach, as personal wins in life?
Well, one, I've already mentioned my personal faith in Jesus Christ. That's
Amen.
the most important thing. The second thing is my wife. I met her at Camp Kanakuk in Branson, Missouri. She was going to, it's a long story, but she was a student at Texas A&M, and I was coaching at Bryan High School. And we met at a summer camp for young people. It was a Christian sports camp in Branson, Missouri. After that summer of work in camp, I came back to Bryan High, and she came back to Texas A&M, and I was asked to play at a college fellowship for the First Baptist Church there in Bryan, and I played the guitar and entertained a little bit. And she came with another student, another man, and I wasn't going to let her get away before I got her phone number. And 2 or 3 months later, I asked her to marry me, and she is a great Christian woman in herself. She's got her own personal faith routine that she does and Bible studies that she's involved in. She's written a book on the coach's wife that is still a bestseller. She accompanies me to FCA camps. We've done some marriage seminars at Fellowship of Christian Athlete camps before. She did Bible studies with our children when they were growing up. Both our children are believers. My son was a pastor in Austin, planted a church in Austin.
Wow.
My daughter married a Christian man here, and he is an elder in their church. And it's all a result of my wife being intentional about the time that she spent when our children were young and the type of Bible studies that she had with them. And she gave them a real basis for their faith, and they still have a strong faith.
What a beauty. What a beauty.
Well, and the third thing, that's the two most important things that I can
God,
think of.
wife, and now?
Well, family. My mother and dad are still alive, and
That's a blessing.
and I've got 8 grandkids, and faith, family, and football has always been the thought, and so I've got
3 F's.
That's right.
Wonderful, Coach. And Coach, thank you so much for that extra story that I love, and I just can't thank you enough for this. Thank you very much,
Liz.
Coach.
Uh-huh.